Guys, my name is Steven and welcome to this new series. Now, in this video series, I am going to introduce to you the PhoneGap platform. Now, what is PhoneGap? So, PhoneGap is actually a framework for building cross-platform mobile applications. So, when we talk about cross-platform mobile applications, we are talking about applications which you can write once and run it anywhere. So basically, they are a bundle of web technologies, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, it is write once, run everywhere, because you can use the same code base to compile for different platforms. So once you write your code once, then you can bundle your app for Android, for iOS, for Windows, and for other operating systems by doing little or no code modifications at all. PhoneGap is a free distribution of the Apache Cordova. So the project that was started was actually Apache Cordova, which was later purchased by Adobe, and it's now PhoneGap. So very often you'll be coming across PhoneGap, coming across Apache Cordova. But then it's free. It's free to use, and it's maintained. The PhoneGap is actually maintained now by Adobe. So as I indicated earlier on, Apache Cordova is actually the team that powers PhoneGap, and they've been working on the core PhoneGap plugins and functionalities, which we'll be using quite a lot in our future videos on PhoneGap. Just to let you know, this is actually the introduction, and you can skip it if you are not new to PhoneGap. But even if you're already using PhoneGap, you can still watch through the video and then you can learn a couple of things. So another thing that can be quite confusing is PhoneGap and PhoneGap Build. So as I told you, PhoneGap is actually the free distribution of Apache Cordova, and PhoneGap Build is actually the commercial part. But then even without purchasing PhoneGap Build, you can still use PhoneGap for all your production applications, and I will show you how to do that later on in our videos. So let's look at more difference between PhoneGap and PhoneGap Build. So still to remind you, PhoneGap it's a framework. So PhoneGap it's a framework that can be used to build mobile applications for various operating systems. So it's cross-platform. And PhoneGap Build is actually a tool. So PhoneGap Build is a tool that aids in building PhoneGap applications. PhoneGap Build it's very easy to use. If you are new to PhoneGap, then you'll be really happy to learn about PhoneGap Build, and you can jump into it by using it to build your applications. But I know for a lot of developers, they like to use PhoneGap, whether the desktop or the command line. So there's actually the desktop and the command line for PhoneGap. The command line gives you a lot of flexibility, but you really need to be familiar with command line to actually use that. And PhoneGap Build actually will make it easy for you to you don't really have to worry so much about maintaining SDKs. PhoneGap Build just provide a platform. All you need to do is to package your application and upload it to the PhoneGap Build website, and they will compile your application for the various platforms. So I'm going to really show you how to do all of these going forward. So I've already mentioned it that PhoneGap Build, it takes away the pain of maintaining the SDKs, doing the development of your PhoneGap application. If you are building your application using the core PhoneGap, you may need to set up your own SDKs. You want to build for Android, you really need to set all of these things. And if you are really new to this technology, then it could be a little bit problematic for you. So if you are new, but I know a lot of developers out there likes to use the command line. That gives them more flexibility. But PhoneGap Build, it's great. I've been using PhoneGap Build for quite a long time to build my application. It makes app development so easy, so stress free, and I promise you will love it. If you are new, I'm going to introduce you to how to use PhoneGap Build, and you're really going to like it. I've already talked about this, and I would mention it again. When developing your PhoneGap applications, you will have two options, and the first one will be to use the command line interface. So for those of you who are familiar with Node.js, you can use Node.js to compile your PhoneGap applications, but you have more work to do over here. You need to install and manage your own SDKs and then all that. But it's great to use the command line interface, but we may not use it. We may not go into it so much in this series. But you can check it out, especially if you're a fan of command line interface. Command line interface is great. It's great. We use it to make it easy to build a lot of applications, to install plugins, and then all that. Okay, so you also have the PhoneGap Desktop, which is the second option. And PhoneGap Desktop gives you sort of a UI interface where you can even pick a template. You can pick a template, and you wouldn't have to start from scratch. You can pick a template, then you specify the name, the version, and description and other information that you need for your app, the app ID, and then all that. Everything is a UI. You just enter those informations and you go ahead and generate your app bundle. We'll be going through the PhoneGap Desktop. I'll show you how to install and set it up. Now let's look at the anatomy of a PhoneGap app. It's a very important thing to note. Every PhoneGap application will have this structure, whether you're generating it from a command line or you are using a PhoneGap Desktop, or even if you are downloading the folder from GitHub or from some other place. It follows this format. So you have the platforms, the plugins, the config XML, which we'll look at in the next slide, hooks and then all that. And you really need this stuff when you are building your app, especially if you are testing your app with the PhoneGap developer. So the PhoneGap developer app, it's an app that's on the Play Store or the App Store, which you can use to test your application whilst you are building it. You can use to test your application and have the feel and look of how your app will be when it's ready. But one thing you should also notice that the PhoneGap developer application, which allows you to test your app, may not work with all plugins. I've seen a couple of them. One example is when I'm trying to integrate push notifications by using platform like OneSignal. I have some videos on OneSignal. You can check it out. OneSignal. I mean, when you use a plugin for PhoneGap, you have to have your app published before you can test the push notification. So that's one thing that you have to check out. Some plugins will not work. The PhoneGap desktop, I mean developer story, is just like an emulator which gives you a feel and look of how your app is supposed to look like. Okay. So then we can look at the www folder. Yeah. The www folder is actually your final application. It houses your files, your HTML files, your CSS, JavaScript, your images, your resource folder. Your resource folder mostly would contain your assets. So your icons, your splash screens in all sizes. And every PhoneGap application requires an index. Without an index, HTML file, it will not work. So once your PhoneGap application, after you install it or you test it, once it is ready, it initializes. Then the first file it will look out for is your index.html file. This is a very important thing that you have to really note when building PhoneGap application. If you don't have an index, you replace it with something like home or main.html, it wouldn't work. You need an index, and then you can have the other files. So eventually this www folder is what we would bundle together and upload to PhoneGap build to get your app generated. Okay, so let's take a look at the config.xml file, and let me just so I'll just mention this before I start going through this. When let's go back to the when uploading this your www folder, you really need to have a copy of the config.xml file. Actually, it's after you generate your files, it actually resides outside your www folder. But once you are ready to use it with PhoneGap build, then you need to have your config.xml file residing in that www folder. www folder, sorry. Okay, lastly, let's look at the config.xml. The config.xml is the core, is the heart of your application. It is the central system which contains all the important information about your application. The name, description, the author information. Something like the author information may not be so important. Your operating system. So over here you specify which operating systems you are targeting. Android, Windows, iOS. You need to specify all these things. I will show you how an XML config.xml file looks like. Plugins and API are very important. Plugins and API allows you to access the native functionality of your application, like geolocation, camera, vibration, and all that. And then the next is your icons and splash screens, which mostly will reside within your resource folder. So for every application you publish to the Play Store or whichever store, you need icons, you need splash screens, and it has to you have these things being part of your application. When somebody launches the application, you want to display a splash screen until your app has loaded. You need an icon to brand your app and make your app unique. So you really need these assets. Lastly, let's look at the access controls. And over here, you are telling your app which links can be used within the app, which you are generally looking at access, and you really want to protect your app. So you need you want to specify, certain access controls for your app. We'll look at it, and you really have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So in the next video, we're actually going to look at an example of a config.xml file, and you will understand all this information that I have put there. The config.xml file is very important. You need to really understand it. And for most of the time, any issues that you may have regarding your app not being able to be packaged and published may come from a more functional config.xml file. So we'll take a look at the config.xml file in the next video. Okay guys, thank you for being part of this introductory video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, click on the like button, and see you in the next video. Thank you and bye bye.